Hello, I'm Paul Turner. I'm an independent alcohol treatment practitioner working in the UK. I originally trained as a mental health nurse and have been working with people with alcohol problems on and off for around about 25 years. Society's view of people with alcohol problems is generally horrendous, including medical professionals who have the view that people who drink too much have chosen that lifestyle, have decided that they're going to drink excessively and get themselves in difficulty and cause problems for themselves and their family. And related to that, the traditional treatment of alcohol problems has been a psychological approach, a behavioural approach, having people stand up in a room and speak to other people, talking about the things that they've done wrong, the way that they've conducted their lives, the fact that they've drunk too much, they've caused problems for their family, they've broken their relationships, they've broken the law, and that everything is their fault. Nobody put the bottle to their lips, it's their fault entirely. Can you imagine if we had a situation where people suffering from cancer were put through the same ordeal? If people who suffered cancer were made to stand in a room and say, "Hello, I'm Paul and I've got cancer and I've been a terrible person and I've upset my family and I'm ashamed of myself," how would that go down? That would be known as an absolute scandal. We wouldn't treat people who have a horrible illness like cancer in that way. But we seem to think it's okay to do that to people with alcohol problems. Now, people with cancer, obviously, they have a physical illness. People with alcohol problems, well, they have a physical illness too. People who drink excessively have a physiological disorder. They don't choose to do it, it's not a lifestyle choice. Their body reacts differently when they drink. When a person drinks, their body releases endorphins, the same as when you go to the gym or you do various extreme sports and other things. Your body releases endorphins, and those endorphins attach to pleasure receptors in the body called opioid receptors. So a person drinks, the endorphins are released and they attach to opioid receptors in the body, and that gives a person pleasure. Now, some people's bodies have overactive opioid receptors, so they gain a lot more reward from having a drink. So whereas one person can go to the pub, have a pint, walk away, not drink again for 6 months, another person will have 1 pint, they'll need another pint, or a glass of wine, or a glass of whiskey, or whatever they drink, and get themselves into awful trouble, because as they drink, their need for alcohol increases as they build tolerance. So whereas 2 pints might do it at the beginning, it turns to 5 pints, and then it turns to shorts, and eventually they end up on a bottle of vodka or maybe more. The problem that these people have is that when they don't drink, their body craves. They get up in the morning after having a drink and their body's saying, "Give me another, I need a drink. I've got to have a drink." They go to work, they're struggling through their day because they're desperate to come to the end of the day when they can have a drink. Their body won't let them relax, their body won't let them stop their thinking about alcohol. Now, when you say to a person, "Don't have a drink," a person who's got an alcohol problem, it's like saying to a person, "Hold your breath." A person can hold their breath for 30, 40, possibly 50 seconds, but by that point they're going to be fit to burst. They're not going to be able to hold on anymore, they're going to breathe. And to say to a person who's got a dependence on alcohol not to drink is like telling somebody to hold their breath. Eventually they're going to drink. There's nothing anybody can do about it. Now, the traditional treatments for alcohol basically relate to helping people cope with abstaining from alcohol. They abstain from alcohol and they go to support groups and they get help to stay away from alcohol. Every day is a white knuckle ride for those people, and they can't just forget about alcohol like a person who doesn't have an alcohol problem can have a drink, not have a drink, it doesn't really matter. A person with an alcohol problem, constantly it's on their mind. Every day is a risk. Every day for a person who's abstinent, it's like standing on the edge of a cliff with a strong gust of wind about to come. That gust of wind might be an argument with their spouse, or a bad day at work, or somebody they know dies, or they get ill, or they have any other problem. It's like a massive gust of wind catching them on the edge of the cliff, and they fall off, and they're back drinking, and they're back to square one. Dr. David Sinclair did some research, and he found that abstinence is not the solution to people who have drink problems, because abstaining just increases craving. Over a period of time, the craving gets stronger and stronger and stronger until the person can't take any more and they have a drink, and they're back to square one. So rather than looking at abstinence, he looked at the response of the opioid receptors to alcohol. And he thought, what about if we can block these opioid receptors? Instead of allowing these endorphins to attach, we'll block them. And he used a drug called naltrexone. And what that did was block the opioid receptors. Now, when people had a drink, they were no longer getting those opioid receptors stimulated. They weren't getting the same reward. And he started with rats, and then he moved on to people, and he discovered that if you blocked those opioid receptors, the body didn't get that same reward, and it was reconditioned not to expect that same reward. And over a period of time, around about 2 to 3 months according to the research, he discovered that people actually unlearned their addiction, and that was called pharmacological extinction. Now, this method has been called the Sinclair Method, after David Sinclair. And basically what happens is people take a pill, in the case of naltrexone, 1 hour before they drink. There's a new drug come along called nalmefene. That's now being licensed for use on the NHS, although nobody seems to be able to get it prescribed easily. That needs to be taken 2 hours before a drink. And when that pill's been taken in advance of having a drink, the person no longer gets the same reward, their desire to drink decreases, and it allows them to go and have a drink, and that's it. 1 drink, 2 drinks, go home. And because their opioid receptors haven't been stimulated, their body isn't saying to them, give me another, give me another. And over a period of time, they can come to a point where they just drink occasionally, once every 6 months if they want. The benefit of that, obviously, is that their alcohol content goes down. They're no longer dependent. They're no longer desperately in need of a drink. They're not desperately trying to white knuckle it through every day not having a drink. If they want a drink, they can have a drink, as long as they take a pill in advance. Now, my colleague and I decided to look into this, and of course it's like everything. You see a story on the internet that there's this method which is a fantastic treatment method for people with alcohol problems, and you take a look and you think, oh, it's another scam, and you just walk away from it and forget it, you hit your back button. But this thing kept on coming in front of me. Every so often I'd see it and I'd read a little bit more, and it suddenly started to make some medical sense to me. I'd always believed that people who drank too much were suffering from a medical condition. And eventually I spoke to my colleague Sean and said to him, have a look at this, see what you think. And we looked at it, and we can't just go treating people with anything that we read about on the internet. We have to do things properly. We have to make sure that things are safe, and we have to make sure they're effective. But we looked back at the original research as well as following the information which was online, and there were some particular resources which are worth looking at. There's a documentary called One Little Pill, and there's also a book by Roy Escapa, that's Eskapa, who wrote a book called The Cure for Alcoholism. Those are 2 good resources to find out about the Sinclair Method. And we looked at those, and we also went back to the original research that Sinclair had done, and we looked at it, and it made enough sense for us to decide to try it with one client who'd had some real difficulty. He'd had about 15 or 16 detoxes, and he was in a terrible, terrible mess. Every time, he was a very successful businessman, but every time he got near a drink, he was in trouble for days. He'd be in a serious, serious mess. And so we said to him, how about trying this? So we tried it with him, and he sent me a text. He was in Bali on holiday. He'd gone on the plane. He sent me a text saying he'd had a drink of red wine with his dinner, and then he got to Doha on the way and he'd had a cup of coffee. And he got into a situation where he was able to do normal things, drink in a controlled way, go out with family and enjoy a social occasion without getting into difficulty. Now, the thing with the Sinclair method is that people can take their pill and then have a drink. It doesn't affect the enjoyment of the drink. It doesn't affect the taste. It doesn't affect the enjoyment of the social atmosphere. It doesn't make them feel sick. It simply stops that subconscious reward that those people get from having a drink, which allows them to obviously get back into a situation where they can choose when they drink. Now, when we tried it on this one client and had such a success, we started treating our other clients, sometimes after they'd done a detox, and sometimes when people came to us saying, I'm drinking too much, I don't need a detox, I'm not having serious withdrawal symptoms, but I can't seem to control how much I'm drinking. So we eventually started treating people with it on a regular basis, and we've treated over 20 patients now, and everyone that has complied has seen success with this method. They've been either able to get their drinking back under control, or they've reached a point where they say, I really don't need to drink anymore, I don't get the same thing from it, I don't miss it, I'm not interested in it, and I'm perfectly happy without having a drink. So we've been able to make a big difference, a big impact on people's lives by just giving them this pill and saying to them, if you want to drink, have a pill and drink. And we've seen people who've gone from a bottle or two of vodka a day down to a glass of wine at the weekend. It's an unbelievable treatment method. Now, when we do get in contact, or when people get in contact with us and they say to us, I really need to do something, I really need to try the Sinclair method, they may have read about it online or somebody's mentioned it to them, we'll always ask how much they're drinking, because if they're drinking 2 bottles of vodka a day and we say to them, take this pill, and they take that pill and they don't want to drink, the danger of alcohol withdrawal symptoms is massive. Alcohol withdrawal symptoms can kill, and we don't want to give somebody a pill that stops them wanting to drink if then by not drinking they're going to get serious alcohol withdrawal symptoms. So we always ensure that we make sure that we detox them first if they're drinking large amounts, or if they have serious withdrawal symptoms when they try to stop drinking. The Sinclair method has proved that alcohol use disorder is a physical illness. It's not a life choice. Nobody chooses to get into trouble with alcohol. Some people drink and get away with it. I'm one of the lucky ones. I can have a drink, I can have a pint and not have another pint for 6 months a year. Doesn't matter to me. Other people in various degrees, once they have a drink, they get carried away. They need more. Their body tells them to give them more. In August 2014, nalmefene was approved on the NHS, and that was approved for use to be prescribed by GPs or specialist alcohol treatment practitioners. That hasn't happened. Nobody seems to be easily able to get nalmefene on the NHS. Those who can are usually taken through a series of different challenges of keeping drink diaries and reducing their alcohol in advance of being given any pills. It's seriously difficult to get, and I can't understand it because it's the most successful treatment method available in the world today. There are various places where the word is being spread. There's a website called the C3 Foundation, and in Europe it's C3 Europe, and they are promoting is the wrong word, raising awareness of the Sinclair method. Lots of people are reading online about how effective the Sinclair method is, and people don't really know how to use it or how to get access to it. The C3 Foundation and C3 Europe websites are good places to go to find out more information. And the two other resources I mentioned earlier, One Little Pill, which is a video which you can get online for, I don't know, I think it's less than £5, and also the book by Roy Scarpa, which you can download as an ebook, called it's called The Cure for Alcoholism. This is an amazing method of treatment and it works, but the most important message from this video today is, if you know somebody with an alcohol problem, don't blame them. They're no more to blame than anybody who's got a physical illness. This is a physiological disorder that some people suffer, and people shouldn't be punished for being ill. They might be difficult, their behaviour might have become difficult as a result of both drinking too much and being blamed for doing that. But they're not bad people. And my impression of people who've got alcohol problems is that, almost without exception, those people who get into trouble with alcohol are very, very decent people. They've just got a seriously difficult medical problem to cope with. Thank you.